The city was already losing its color as evening arrived, and people rushed down the streets with cold faces and tired steps. Among them walked Daniel, a man in his early 30s who worked at a small repair shop on the corner of Maple Street. His days were long, his pay was modest, and his dreams had learned to live quietly behind his daily routine. He didn't complain much. Life had taught him that peace sometimes came from accepting things as they were. Daniel wasn't special in any obvious way. He didn't have a fancy car or big house. He rented a small apartment that always smelled faintly of machine oil and detergent from his work clothes. Yet people in his neighborhood knew him as someone dependable. If a neighbor's bulb stopped working, Daniel fixed it. If an old lady needed help carrying groceries, he showed up. He never made a big deal about kindness. To him, it was just something you did. That evening was colder than usual. The wind carried a sharp bite, and people wrapped scarves tightly around their faces. Daniel was on his way home after another long day, his fingers stiff from hours of repairing broken phones and old radios. He stopped by a food stall, buying himself a cup of tea to warm his hands. The vendor, an older man with a kind smile, greeted him the same way every night. Small moments like that made Daniel feel less alone. As he sipped his tea, his eyes fell on an old man sitting near the bus stop. The man looked worn out, his coat torn, his shoes unevenly laced. He sat quietly on the cold pavement, shivering as cars rushed past. People walked by, their eyes fixed on their phones, pretending not to see. Daniel watched for a moment, unsure of what to do. He didn't have much money himself, and his rent was due soon. But something in him couldn't look away. He finished his tea and walked over. The man looked up, his eyes watery and tired. "Cold night," Daniel said softly. The man nodded, barely smiling. "It gets colder when nobody talks to you," he replied. The words hit Daniel harder than he expected. Without thinking much, he took off his jacket and placed it over the man's shoulders. "Here, take this. I can manage." The man tried to refuse, shaking his head, but Daniel insisted. "It's okay. I've got another one at home," he said, even though he didn't. Then he walked back to the food stall and bought a small meal, a bowl of rice and stew. When he handed it to the man, the old stranger's eyes filled with tears. "You don't even know me," the man said. Daniel smiled faintly. "You don't have to know someone to care," he replied. The old man ate slowly, almost in disbelief. When he finished, he looked at Daniel and said, "You've done something most people don't. Remember this: kindness always finds its way back. The universe never forgets." Daniel didn't know how to respond, so he just nodded and walked home. But those words followed him all the way to his apartment. That night, as he sat on his small couch, Daniel thought about what the man had said. The universe never forgets. He wasn't sure if he believed that. Life had never been particularly generous to him. He had worked hard since he was a teenager, helping his mother after his father left. Every little thing he owned came from years of effort, and yet he never expected rewards for being kind. It was just who he was. The next morning, Daniel woke up early, as he always did. The air still held that winter chill. He put on his only remaining jacket and walked to the shop. His boss, Mr. Patel, was already there, checking inventory. "Morning, Daniel," he greeted. "I need you to handle a few repairs today. We're short on parts, so be careful not to waste anything." Daniel nodded, smiling politely, and got to work. As the day went by, customers came and went. A young woman brought her cracked phone screen. A delivery man needed his radio fixed, and a teenager asked for help with a game console. Daniel worked patiently, speaking kindly to everyone. He never rushed his work. He believed every small task deserved attention. That's why people trusted him. Later that afternoon, an elderly lady entered the shop holding an old clock. It was an antique, the kind with gold hands and a gentle ticking sound. "It belonged to my husband," she said softly. "It stopped working last month. Can you fix it?" Daniel examined it carefully. "I'll do my best," he promised. He worked on it for hours, adjusting gears and cleaning dust from its corners. When it finally ticked again, the lady's eyes sparkled with relief. She tried to pay him extra, but he refused. "Just pay what it costs," he said. She smiled, touched by his honesty. When he closed the shop that evening, Daniel felt tired but peaceful. On his way home, he passed the same bus stop. The old man from the night before wasn't there. Maybe he had found shelter, Daniel hoped. He looked around for a moment, half expecting to see him again, but the place was empty. The streetlights buzzed faintly in the cold air. Back home, Daniel made himself a simple dinner, rice and eggs, and sat near the small window, watching lights flicker in nearby buildings. People hurried through their lives, each carrying their own worries. Sometimes he wondered if being kind really mattered in such a busy, selfish world. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. But for some reason, that thought didn't stop him from caring. Over the next few days, life went on as usual. The shop was busier than ever. One customer, impressed by Daniel's skill, told his friends about him, and soon more people started coming. Mr. Patel noticed the increase in work and said, "You've been doing great lately. I'll add a small bonus to your pay this month." It wasn't a lot, but to Daniel it felt like a blessing. He smiled, grateful. That night, as he returned home, he noticed an envelope under his door. There was no name, no address, just his name written neatly on the front. Inside was a small note that read, "Good things return to good hearts." There was no money or gift, only those simple words. Daniel looked around the hallway, confused. Maybe it was a prank. But something about the handwriting felt sincere. He sat down, holding the note between his fingers. A small warmth spread through his chest, the same kind he felt when he gave his jacket to the old man. Maybe the universe really did notice kindness, even if it didn't show it right away. He smiled quietly to himself, tucking the note into his wallet. Before going to bed, he looked out the window once more. The city lights flickered, the same as always, but tonight they seemed softer, almost alive. Maybe it was just his imagination, or maybe, just maybe, the universe had begun to whisper back. The next few weeks moved quietly for Daniel. The days felt lighter somehow, even though nothing huge had changed. He still woke up early, took the same route to work, fixed broken phones, and returned home to his little apartment. Yet small things began to happen that made him pause and think. People smiled more when they talked to him. Customers recommended his shop to others. Even his boss, who was usually strict and distant, seemed friendlier. It started one morning when a customer walked in holding a small speaker. The man explained it had stopped working and asked if Daniel could fix it quickly. Daniel nodded and said, "Give me an hour." He worked carefully, cleaning each wire, soldering broken joints, and testing the sound. When the speaker came back to life, the man smiled wide. "You're good at this. I'll tell my friends about you," he said. Daniel just smiled modestly, wiping his hands on a cloth. He didn't think much of it, but word spread faster than he expected. Within days, new faces filled the shop, people asking specifically for Daniel. Some said they'd heard from a friend or a neighbor that he was honest and kind. His boss noticed the growing crowd. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it," he said with a grin. For the first time in years, Daniel felt his hard work was being seen. One evening, as he closed the shop, he found a small box sitting on the counter. Inside was a chocolate bar and a note that said, "Thanks for being kind when you don't have to." There was no name written. He looked around the empty shop and chuckled softly. Maybe someone appreciated his patience earlier that day. It felt nice to be seen, even in such a small way. That night, while walking home, he thought again about the old man he had helped weeks ago. He hadn't seen him since. Sometimes he wondered where he was. Maybe he'd found shelter or someone else to help him. Or maybe, Daniel thought, the man had simply been there to remind him that kindness mattered. He still remembered those words clearly. The universe never forgets. The following weekend brought a surprise. Mr. Patel, his boss, announced that he was planning to open another repair shop in the next town. "If things go well, I'll need someone reliable to help manage both places," he said. Then he looked at Daniel. "You're good with people. Think about it." Daniel didn't know what to say. He'd never been offered responsibility like that before. "I'll think about it, sir," he replied politely. When he got home that night, he sat on his bed, staring at the ceiling. It was strange how life had started changing after that one small act of kindness. It wasn't that everything was perfect now, but something felt different inside him. Lighter, calmer. Maybe when you give something good to the world, it really does come back in ways you can't predict. A few days later, he got another reminder of that truth. A young delivery boy came into the shop, drenched from the rain. His motorbike had broken down nearby, and he was worried he'd lose his job if he couldn't finish his deliveries. Daniel offered him a towel and a seat while he looked at the boy's small radio, which had also stopped working. "Don't worry," Daniel said kindly. "Let's see what we can do." Within minutes, he had it fixed. The boy looked relieved. "Thank you, sir." I'll pray for you. You've helped me a lot, he said before rushing off. When Daniel turned back to his desk, he saw another customer waiting, a middle-aged woman holding a phone. She smiled warmly. I saw what you did, she said softly. The world needs more people like you. Daniel just nodded, a little embarrassed. He never liked being praised. To him, helping was natural, not something special. That evening, as he locked the shop, the rain had stopped. The streets smelled fresh, the air cool against his skin. He began walking home but stopped when he noticed something on the sidewalk near his building. It was a small folded note, the same handwriting as before. He picked it up carefully. It read, "Good things return to good hearts." The same words from the envelope he had received earlier. His heart skipped for a moment. He looked around but no one was there. The street was quiet except for the faint hum of distant traffic. He slipped the note into his pocket, smiling quietly. Life continued this way for a while. Little signs, small kindnesses, unexpected good moments. One customer gifted him a cup of coffee. A child drew a small picture of him fixing a phone and gave it to him with pride. Every tiny act made him feel like the world had begun to notice him. Not because he was doing something extraordinary, but because he was being himself. Then, one afternoon, his phone rang. It was the landlord. "Daniel, I need to talk about your rent," the man said. Daniel's stomach sank for a moment. He feared bad news. "Yes, sir," he asked. The landlord sighed. "I've been thinking. You've always paid on time, and you've helped around the building whenever something breaks. I'm reducing your rent by 10% starting next month." Daniel was stunned. "Are you sure?" he asked. "Yes," the landlord replied. "Good tenants deserve something in return." When the call ended, Daniel sat quietly, grateful. The universe, he thought, was definitely listening. That night he visited a nearby bakery to treat himself to something sweet. As he waited in line, a young girl ahead of him struggled to count her money. She wanted to buy a small cake for her mother, but didn't have enough. Daniel placed a few coins on the counter and said, "It's okay. Let me cover it." The girl's face lit up. "Thank you, Uncle," she said, holding the cake close. He smiled as she ran out into the street. The baker behind the counter said softly, "You've got a good heart. People notice that, you know." As Daniel walked home, the city lights glimmered like stars on wet pavement. He thought about the old man again, wondering if he would ever see him. Maybe he was just passing through that night, or maybe he was something more, a messenger, a reminder that kindness never disappears. Whatever the truth was, Daniel didn't need to know. He only knew that something had changed inside him. He felt more alive, more connected to the world around him. When he reached his apartment, he opened his wallet to put away his change. The small note was still there, folded neatly. "Good things return to good hearts." He smiled and set it by the window. Then he sat back, sipping his tea and listening to the sounds of the night. Somewhere far away, a bus rumbled down the road. Life went on as it always did. But now, Daniel noticed every small detail, every bit of warmth hidden inside ordinary moments. As the clock ticked softly on his wall, he thought about how strange it was that one simple act, giving a jacket to a cold stranger, had started this quiet wave of good fortune. Maybe kindness really did echo back. Maybe the universe had its own gentle way of saying thank you. A few weeks later, Daniel's life took an unexpected turn. It started with a phone call one cold morning. He had just arrived at the shop and was unpacking his tools when his phone buzzed. It was his sister, her voice trembling on the other end. "It's Mom," she said. "She's not feeling well. The doctor says she needs to be admitted." Daniel froze. His mother had always been strong, the kind of woman who rarely complained. She lived in a small town 2 hours away, and he hadn't visited her in months because of work. He told his boss about the emergency, locked up the shop, and took the first bus he could find. The hospital smelled of disinfectant and worry. When he reached her room, his mother lay on the bed, weak but smiling. "You came," she said softly. "Of course I did," Daniel replied, holding her hand. The doctor explained that she needed some treatment and rest. The bills wouldn't be small, but Daniel didn't care. He would find a way to pay for it. Over the next few days, he stayed by her side. He bought her medicines, helped her eat, and made sure she was comfortable. But inside, his heart was heavy. He didn't have enough savings to cover all the expenses. His small bonus from work was already gone, and the little he had left wouldn't last long. One evening, he sat in the hospital corridor, his head in his hands, thinking of what to do. A nurse passed by and asked gently, "Are you okay?" He smiled faintly. "Just worried about my mom," he said. She nodded and said, "She's lucky to have a son like you." Her words brought a small comfort, but the worry still pressed on him. He decided to return to the city the next morning to collect some money he was owed from the shop. On his way back, the bus broke down halfway. Rain started pouring and everyone groaned in frustration. Daniel stepped out, holding his small bag close to keep it dry. The road was empty except for a few cars rushing by. As he waited under a shelter, he noticed a man struggling with a flat tire nearby. The man looked anxious, checking his watch again and again. Without hesitation, Daniel walked over. "Need help?" he asked. The man nodded gratefully. Together they fixed the tire in the rain. When it was done, the man sighed in relief. "Thank you, my friend. I was getting late for an important meeting." Daniel smiled. "It's all right. Anyone would have done the same." The man shook his head. Not everyone would stop in the rain to help a stranger. He reached into his wallet, but Daniel raised his hand. "No need," he said kindly. "Just get there safely." The man paused for a moment, looking at him curiously. "You've got a good heart," he said. "If you ever need something, don't hesitate to ask." Then he handed Daniel a business card before driving away. Daniel looked at the card briefly. It had a name and a company logo he didn't recognize. He put it in his pocket and didn't think much about it. Back in the city, he returned to work the next day. His boss noticed he looked tired. "Everything okay?" he asked. Daniel told him briefly about his mother. Mr. Patel nodded slowly. "Family comes first. Take what you need from your pay early. We'll manage the rest later." Daniel was touched. He thanked him sincerely and hurried back to the hospital with the money. His mother's condition slowly began to improve. The color returned to her cheeks and she even laughed again. Watching her recover was a relief beyond words. But Daniel was still left with bills to pay and very little left for himself. One night, after visiting hours ended, he walked out of the hospital and sat on a nearby bench. The air was cool and the city lights shimmered in the distance. He took out his wallet to count what little he had left. As he did, the old note fell out, the one that said, "Good things return to good hearts." He stared at it for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "Maybe you're right," he whispered. "Maybe things will work out." The next day he returned to the shop, ready to work harder than ever. Late in the evening, just as he was about to close, a well-dressed man walked in. "Are you Daniel?" the man asked. "Yes, sir," Daniel replied. The man smiled. "You helped me a few days ago on the highway. My car had a flat tire." Daniel blinked in surprise. It was the same man from the rain. "Oh, I remember," he said. "I'm glad you made it to your meeting." The man laughed. "I did, and that meeting changed a lot for me. I closed a big deal that day." He looked around the small shop. "You run this place?" Daniel shook his head. "I just work here." The man nodded thoughtfully. "Well, I've been thinking about what you did. You didn't take any money, and that says a lot about your character." He took out a card and handed it to Daniel again. "I run a small electronics company. We're looking for someone dependable and skilled to manage our service center. The pay's better and there's room to grow. I think you'd fit right in." Daniel was speechless. "Me? Are you sure?" The man smiled warmly. "Completely. Come by tomorrow if you're interested. You helped me when you didn't have to. Let me return the favor." He left as quietly as he came, leaving Daniel standing there, still trying to process what had just happened. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He thought about how one act of kindness had led to this unexpected opportunity. He didn't know if he should take it. He'd been at the repair shop for years, and change always scared him. But something inside told him this was meant to happen. The next morning, he told his boss about the offer. Mr. Patel smiled proudly. "You deserve it, Daniel. You've worked hard and earned every bit of good that comes your way." They shook hands warmly. "If it doesn't work out, you'll always have a place here," Mr. Patel said. Daniel went to meet the businessman at his office. The building was bright and modern, filled with the sound of busy people and ringing phones. The man greeted him with a handshake and showed him around. "This will be your workspace," he said. "We need someone we can trust, and I already know I can trust you." Daniel felt a deep sense of gratitude. Everything was happening so fast, yet it all felt right. He signed the papers that day and officially became part of the company. When he got his first paycheck a month later, it was more than he had ever earned in his life. He used part of the money to clear his mother's hospital bills and bought her some warm clothes for winter. When he visited her, she smiled proudly. "You see, my son," she said, "the good you give always finds its way home." He hugged her tightly, tears in his eyes. That night, as he returned to his apartment, he felt lighter than ever before. He placed his old wallet on the table and unfolded the worn note again. Good things return to good hearts. He smiled and whispered, "You were right all along." He didn't know where life would take him next, but one thing was clear. He would keep being kind, no matter what. Because somewhere out there, the universe was listening, waiting for another small act of compassion to turn into something extraordinary. Months passed, and Daniel's new job began to feel like a blessing he hadn't expected. The office was clean and bright, and the people treated him with respect. He managed the service center with care, making sure customers were heard and problems were fixed properly. His honesty and patience quickly made him stand out. The businessman who had hired him often said, "You've got a good way with people, Daniel. They trust you." Daniel would smile humbly and reply, "I just do my best, sir." But deep down he knew that what made the difference wasn't skill alone, it was kindness. He listened when others didn't. He helped even when it wasn't his job. He remembered the old man's words about the universe never forgetting compassion. It had become his quiet guide. Life began to feel stable for the first time in years. His mother was recovering well, his bills were paid on time, and he finally had a little money left at the end of each month. Sometimes he would take the bus back to his old neighborhood and visit the shop where he used to work. Mr. Patel always welcomed him warmly. "Look at you now," he would say proudly. "You've done well for yourself." Daniel would smile, but he never let success make him forget where he came from. He still wore simple clothes, still greeted everyone with the same gentle respect. On weekends, he volunteered at a local shelter, fixing small appliances and helping distribute food. It gave him peace to give back. One chilly evening, as he was leaving the office, he noticed a photo frame sitting on his new desk. He didn't remember placing it there. It had a simple quote written inside, "Compassion returns multiplied." He froze for a moment, recognizing those words. They echoed the same message the old man at the bus stop had told him long ago. For a moment, he wondered if someone was playing a trick. But then he smiled quietly, feeling something deeper, like the universe was speaking to him again. The next few weeks brought more signs of that unseen connection. Business at the service center grew quickly. Customers left good reviews and the company expanded to more locations. The businessman, now more like a friend, often relied on Daniel's judgment for major decisions. "You've got good instincts," he said one day. "It's like you can see the good in people before anyone else does." Daniel laughed softly. "Maybe it's because people once saw good in me when I didn't expect it." Despite the busy workdays, Daniel still found time for small acts of kindness. One afternoon, he saw a new employee struggling with paperwork. She looked stressed, close to tears. Without hesitation, he sat beside her and said, "Take a deep breath. Let's go through it together." She smiled gratefully, her worry easing. Later that day, she left a small thank you note on his desk. "Your patience made my day easier." Little things like that filled his heart with quiet joy. He didn't do them for attention, but somehow goodness always seemed to circle back to him. Then one evening, something unexpected happened. Daniel was locking up the office when he found a man waiting near the entrance. The man looked nervous, holding a folder in his hands. "Excuse me," he said. "Are you Mr. Daniel?" Daniel nodded. "I wanted to thank you," the man said. "A few weeks ago, you spoke kindly to my wife at your service center when she came in with a broken phone. She said you treated her with so much respect. I was looking for a reliable partner for my new business, and when I heard your name again today, I knew it was a sign." Daniel was taken aback. "That's very kind of you," he said. The man smiled. "Kindness travels fast, my friend. People remember it." He handed Daniel his card and said, "Let's meet soon. Maybe we can work together." That night, as Daniel walked home under the quiet glow of the streetlights, he couldn't stop thinking about how one act of kindness kept connecting him to new paths. It was as if the world had its own way of rewarding a good heart, slowly, silently, but surely. When he reached home, he sat by the window with a cup of tea. He looked out at the street where people moved like shadows in the cold night air. Then he noticed something odd. Across the road, near the same bus stop where he had once met the old man, someone was sitting again. The figure looked familiar. Worn clothes, tired posture. Daniel's heart skipped. Could it be him? He quickly put on his jacket and stepped outside, crossing the street. But when he got closer, the figure stood up and walked away, disappearing into the crowd before Daniel could reach him. Only a small piece of paper remained on the bench. He picked it up. It said, "Keep giving and life will keep giving back." He stood there for a long time, holding the note in his hand, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. The next morning, Daniel placed the note beside the photo frame on his desk. The two messages looked like they belonged together. He couldn't explain it, but he felt that the old man's spirit, whether real or imagined, was still watching over him, reminding him that kindness was a lifelong path. A few days later, the businessman called him into his office. "Daniel," he said with a proud smile, "I want you to lead our new service branch. You've earned it." Daniel was speechless. "Me? I don't know if I'm ready for that." The man chuckled. "You're more than ready. You've got honesty, patience, and a heart people trust. That's what leadership means." Daniel accepted the offer with humility. On his first day as the branch manager, he looked around at the new team waiting for him. They were nervous, hopeful, and full of questions, just like he had been when he started. He smiled warmly and said, "Let's build something good together. And remember, it's not just about fixing things. It's about caring for people." The months that followed were some of the best of his life. He watched his team grow confident, customers leave with smiles, and his mother's health fully return. Every night he walked home with a deep sense of contentment, not because of success or money, but because he had learned something few people truly understand. Kindness never disappears. It always comes back, though not always from where you expect. One late evening, while cleaning his desk, he noticed the old photo frame again. The quote still read, "Compassion returns multiplied." He touched the glass gently, his heart full of quiet gratitude. He didn't know who had left it there that first day or how the notes kept finding him, but he didn't need to. He had seen enough proof that the universe speaks in small, mysterious ways. As he left the office that night, he looked once more at the empty bus stop across the road. It stood quietly under the streetlight the same way it had that night long ago. Daniel smiled to himself and whispered, "Thank you." He didn't know who he was thanking, the old man, life, or maybe just the universe itself, but deep down, he knew that every good thing in his life had begun with that one small act of compassion. Years later, Daniel often thought about how far life had brought him. The service company he managed had grown beyond anything he imagined. New branches opened in nearby cities, and his name was known among business circles for honesty and fairness. But despite all the success, Daniel never let go of his humble roots. He still took the same bus route to work, greeted the same street vendors, and smiled at strangers the way he always had. One morning, as he walked through the city square, he saw a young man sitting on the same bench where he had once met the old stranger years ago. The young man looked lost and defeated, holding a small torn backpack and a crumpled piece of paper. Daniel felt a sudden pull in his heart. He walked over and said gently, "You look like you've had a hard day. Are you all right?" The young man hesitated, glancing up at him. "I just lost my job," he said quietly. "I came to the city hoping things would get better, but I don't even have enough for food tonight." Daniel smiled kindly, recognizing the same pain he had once carried. Without a second thought, he reached into his wallet and gave the man enough money for a warm meal and a few nights in a hostel. "Take this," he said softly. "It's not much, but it might help you breathe for a while." The young man stared at the money, disbelief filling his eyes. "I can't accept this, sir." Daniel shook his head. "You can. And one day, when life gives you a chance, help someone else. That's how kindness works. It keeps moving." The young man nodded slowly, emotion shining in his eyes. "Thank you. I won't forget this." Daniel smiled, patting his shoulder. "You don't have to remember me. Just remember to care." Then he turned and walked away, feeling a quiet warmth inside him, the same feeling he had known years ago when the old man had helped him at that very spot. Days passed, and Daniel went on with his work. But that meeting stayed with him. It reminded him how small acts could ripple through time, connecting strangers in unseen ways. Sometimes, when he walked through the busy streets, he wondered how many lives had been touched by that one moment of compassion long ago. A few months later, Daniel received an invitation to speak at a youth event about leadership and values. He wasn't used to giving speeches, but he agreed. On the day of the event, the hall was filled with students and young professionals. When he walked onto the stage, there was warm applause. He smiled and began simply, "I don't have big secrets of success to share. I just have a story." He spoke about struggle, hope, and how kindness had changed his life. He told them about the old man who once helped him when he was broken, and how that one moment became the turning point of his journey. The crowd listened in silence, many with tears in their eyes. "We think kindness is small," Daniel said near the end, "but it's not. It's the most powerful thing we can give. It travels farther than we ever imagine." When the event ended, people came up to thank him. Among them was a young woman who looked familiar. She smiled and said, "You don't remember me, do you? I used to work at your first branch years ago. You helped me through my first week when I was struggling. I just wanted you to know. I started my own repair shop last year and it's going well. You inspired me to treat people the same way you treated me." Daniel's eyes softened. "That means more than any award," he said quietly. He shook her hand warmly and wished her well. That night, as he drove home, he felt a sense of peace he couldn't put into words. Life had come full circle in so many ways. His mother, now older but healthy, often sat with him on the porch listening to his stories. "You've done good, my son," she would say, "but what I love most is that you never forgot to be kind." Daniel would smile, sipping his tea, and answer, "That's the one thing I promised myself never to lose." One evening, as rain poured gently outside, Daniel found himself thinking about the old man again. It had been many years since that night at the bus stop, but the memory still felt vivid. The tired eyes, the warm smile, the quiet wisdom. He wondered where that man might be or if he was still alive. A small thought crossed his mind. Maybe he was never just a man. Maybe he was something more, a messenger from the universe sent to remind him what really matters. A few days later, Daniel visited the same bus stop after work. The air was cool and the city lights shimmered across the wet pavement. He sat on the same bench where it had all begun, just thinking. He closed his eyes for a moment, listening to the soft hum of the city around him. When he opened them, he noticed something strange. A small folded piece of paper was resting beside him. He picked it up and unfolded it. The handwriting was familiar, old and careful. It read, "You kept the promise. The world is better for it." Daniel stared at the note, his heart beating fast. A gentle smile spread across his face. He didn't know how it had appeared there, but he didn't question it. He simply whispered, "Thank you," and tucked it safely into his pocket. From that day forward, Daniel made it his mission to teach others the value of compassion, not through big speeches, but through daily actions. He started a small foundation that helped unemployed youth learn repair and service skills, offering free training and meals. He called it the Second Chance Project. He often told the trainees, "Someone once gave me a second chance when I thought life was over. I'm just passing it forward." The foundation grew slowly, but the impact was real. People who had once felt hopeless found purpose again. They would often say, "Sir, you changed my life." Daniel would smile and answer, "No, kindness did." Years rolled on, and Daniel grew older. His hair turned gray, but his heart stayed as gentle as ever. One morning as he walked through the city, he saw something that made him stop. The young man he had once helped on the bench was now standing in front of a small electronics shop, with a bright sign that read, "Kind Fix Repairs." The man saw Daniel and ran over with a wide grin. "Sir, you won't believe it, I built this business because of you." "I never forgot what you said." Daniel looked at him with pride. "You didn't just remember," he said softly. "You lived it." They stood there for a moment, two lives connected by one timeless act of compassion. It was proof that kindness truly travels in circles. That night, as Daniel sat by the window with a cup of tea, he thought about all the people who had crossed his path. The old man, the businessman, the young workers, the lost stranger, they had all become threads in the same beautiful story. He smiled to himself, whispering, "The universe really does pay back, doesn't it?" Outside, the night sky shimmered with stars. Somewhere in that vast silence, Daniel felt a quiet presence, as if the old man was watching with a knowing smile. Life had come full circle and compassion had returned multiplied, just as it always does.